Well, Red, what's up, man? Hey, well, Red, if you want the link, I'll send it to you. I'm just hanging out. I think I have some things I was going to maybe do. Well, Red, you're fast on the draw with that, too. I just clicked the button. I didn't give anyone a chance. I was trying to booby trap people. But, well, Red's always one step ahead. That guy plays 4D chess. By the way, well, Red, I will be in Tampa. I bought my ticket, so it's on. So you, me, and Matt C, whoever else, let's be hanging. We'll combine multiple groups. I already feel it's one reason I didn't want to go is I already feel like there's like a cool kids table and I'm not part of it and it annoys me. But I don't know if this could be in my head. Could be, what do you call it? Like trauma paranoia. Crystal McGee, what's up? Crystal, are you anywhere near Florida and can you get there by Thursday or Friday or Saturday? No, but what's up? Yeah, 7 people. So the campaign, quick update on the campaign. It's almost 12K now. It has been a little bit what I had hoped, which is that it will slowly tick up, but not really die, just continuous slow ticking up. And that's pretty much what it's been doing, which is nice. It's a 15-day campaign. Yeah, it's almost averaging like just ticking up like $1,000 a day. And it hasn't really slowed down. It's just like, so that's kind of awesome. It's still like a tortoise and the hare thing though, because Cerberus did 14K on the first day, which might have been my best first day ever. I can't remember. But that one, it did nothing for like 3 weeks. And I was like, oh, never again. But so this still hasn't even passed, that first day of Cerberus. Cerberus ended up doing 33K, which this one won't, but this one combined with the Indiegogo might approach that or something. So we'll see. Yeah. Well, Red says that table's all drama. We're lucky to not be invited. Yeah. I know. Sometimes you just want to get invited so you can say thanks, but no thanks. You know what I mean? But that's unrealistic too. But that's like cake and eat it too or whatever. I lettered Grand Prix today, though. I've been lettering it for the past 2 weeks. Just to letter 44 pages, it took 10 days. So that's way longer than it's ever taken me in the past. And part of that was like some focus issues and running the campaign at the same time. But a big part of it is that I was doing some last minute rewrites as I went, kind of polishing up art here and there even. So yeah, it's just been like a polishing process. But what's nice is sometimes I do that right before I go to print, and it will take like 2 weeks to do that, to like get the due diligence to have something really ready for print that you feel good about. And this, I kind of already have it. So when it's done, it'll be done and I can like send it straight to the printers and print it in like September or whatever, start doing that. I'm already starting to look a little bit forward and ahead to Hotel Story. I want everyone to know and keep that one in mind. That one will be a lot of fun. I wonder, it crossed my mind that, I think this year I'm doing 3 crowdfunds. So it's not, but it's like one ends and the other begins. And they all last about 3 to 4 months. And I've kind of been doing that for a while. If you count Narzac, then I have been, and I'm like, shit, am I saturating the narwhal market though? Or is there narwhal exhaustion? And for one, I hope not, because every project's super different and different collaborators and stuff. But that's something I got to watch out for. But also, going faster with comics, if you can, you make more money. So because you're trying to make a living. So, if I can do 3 campaigns a year instead of 2 campaigns, that's potentially a lot better if I can do it and get that workflow going. I've had enough experience now from it's been 2 kind of big projects, and it's been since EarthBound 2 was when I had the like slush fund of like earnings from EarthBound 2 being a success that I invested back into comics and kind of treating that money as an investment has been very interesting. And I've been learning a lot because that business model changes completely, which is actually going back to EarthBound. It's kind of refreshing because I'm like, I do everything. There's no overhead. It could just make $1,000 and I'd be like, sure, whatever. So, if it got like 50 backers or something, and I'd be like, here's your books. Next one. Whoosh, that only takes me a second to fulfill. We're making money. Whoop, 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 whoop. But then, yeah, when you're working with artists, it's like you got to make your money back. So then marketing becomes extra important. And that's something I maybe didn't quite play my cards right with Cerberus. We'll see. But that one, I swear, deserves to be 6 figures, and it didn't even come close. But it will do a lot better when the sequel comes out because it's getting good reviews and everyone loves it. But that one too, could be published for reals kind of thing. Like, I don't know it was, oh shoot, what's her name? It's one of the nice ladies kind of ancillary to Comicsgate. She used to be an editor for Marvel. If you guys know who I'm talking about, let me know in the chat. But she's very nice. And she read Cerberus and she really liked it. And she was like, you can totally get this published, blah, blah, blah. You got to send it to publishers. So I might even hit her up and ask her a little bit more about that. But I kind of think maybe I want to get the whole book together. The whole book, when it's all together, will be kind of cool because there's 1 or 2 things it does right that I know it does right, where some stuff I don't know. You got to get the feedback from the audience and everything. But it has pretty good payoffs. And mysteries, that's a little bit hard to do. Build up is easy and fun. Intrigue, you can build all this cool, fun intrigue. But can you have the payoff be as cool or cooler than what everyone was picturing in their head? And Cerberus, I'm pretty sure it does do that. It has a pretty epic, fun, like kind of mystery reveal and big climactic action kind of thing. So that's all coming up. And me and Monica are working on that now. Then working on the short stories compendium too, working with multiple artists, getting it all out there, juggling the workflows and stuff. But part of what's fun is this will continue to happen over time, I'm sure. But I've got a little bullpen now. I've got it's still pretty darn small, but it's like 3, 4, 5. One person in particular is Jared Jewell. He's like my right-hand man, and he's a genius. I love him. But and he's the guy we're doing Hotel Story together. So building kind of these networking collaborations to possibly put together, like you build like the workflow for another project if you have the budget. And it's like for this idea for Percival, I'm like, that could so be a full series. I already have like 10 episode ideas because it would be episodic. And I have one huge sweeping arc that would be like the movie. And I'm like, I could hire writers. People could learn that character really easy. It's pretty simple, like the rules of how the Holy Grail works. And it doesn't have to only be Percival. He could meet other characters and stuff. And I'm like, man, if I had the budget, I would just get that rolling for an actual series. But yeah, the thing that's still a little bit of and then within that too is like animation, movies, video games. Obviously, that's even more people to harangue and figure out how to make it work, how to make the business plan work. But even with like me and Jared, we're messing with some animation. That's one too that, if you just have a team of 2 people, 2 is double 1. So things go twice as fast. That's quite a bit of an upgrade. If you get to 4, you could double it again. And 4 is not that many people. That's like what all the teams to make Doom back in the day, to make all these classic video games we grew up on, the teams were like, 4 to 8 people or whatever. So I'm like, you could build I'm assembling a team. So that's what I'm trying to do in the background. Just be ready whenever it does happen, God willing or whatever, that if I get some more slush fund to invest, I don't know if slush fund's the right word, but whatever, to invest back into comics, back into animation, video games, movies. Because it definitely becomes like a situation where I'm already pretty full-time just chipping away at EarthBound. So and I want to do the other kind of big project I want to take on is Percival, the traditional art comic, and try and do that next year. What's up, Sark? What's up, Richard Cahill? Prophylactic is how I describe narwhal. Does that mean like when you need to take a crap but you can't? No, that's that's something. I don't know. Constipated. Alex Witherow, plan to do a new EarthBound every year, like Grand Prix 6 parts. I wanted to go way faster than that. So part 2 is already started. I had to kind of put it to the side to get a bunch of all this stuff ready, but it's like 10 pages in. It'll be 44 pages. So, that will take me like a month or two, and then that will be ready. So it'll be early next year, part 2, and then later next year, part 3. And I got maybe a few other projects here and there. Trying to do 3 campaigns a year, probably. There might be eventually be a new Narzak project, and one that's getting kind of a little bit more attention, and will more and more as it gets ready is modded. Modded's funny because modded again, it gives me that feeling like, oh, this could be a 6-figure campaign. But Matt Costin's doing the art; it looks amazing. That one I co-wrote it with Nate and Tungsten. I think the 3 of us kind of were the main kind of writers. The very early stages of it started way back in the writers' room, like 2017, like brainstorming just some ideas. Tungsten came to me and said he wanted to do this Nerf story because he is super into Nerf modding, and there's one Nerf page in EarthBound, so he's like, maybe you should be the guy to do it. And I was like, oh shoot. So me, Nate, and him started like writing this script, and it's one of my favorite things. Like, I don't know, there's like you can look back at your art, and this wasn't always the case for me. For a long time you look back and you're like, oh, I've improved, this is good. And you look back, you're like, oh, I've improved, this is good. And then eventually you look back and you're like, oh, I actually like my old stuff just as much or better than I like my new stuff. They're like, shit, I'm on the downwards hill already. You're telling me I'm going downhill already? But I'll look at modded. I'm like, that was a cool phase because that was the early phase where I didn't know everything. It was all shooting from the hip, but like I'd kind of done enough writing to get decent at it. And with Nate and Tungsten, it's fun to co-write and collab. And that script turned out great. It's a lot of fun. But that one I can even pitch it kind of quickly, hopefully. But it's like an alien comes to Earth and he tells Earth basically, he's like, you get 500 tries to beat me at anything you want. And you can tell me what it is and then tell me the rules and then try to beat me. If you can't beat me in 500 tries, I'm going to enslave your entire planet. And he's called the champion. And that's kind of the culture of where he comes from, is where they go out and kind of challenge planets and see if they have a rising champion. And so we try everything, like there's kind of a montage of like, he beats Michael Jordan at basketball. This alien does. Then he beats he beats everyone. He beats Mike Tyson at boxing, and he beats anyone who's the best. He's beating him. And so then culturally things are happening too. Like the world powers, they're kind of like not really warring, but they're kind of battling for influence of those 500 chances. So as it gets down to the last 10 chances, like China is like, let us do it. Russia's like, let us do it. And America's like, let us do it. But they've already done everything. So they don't even know what the challenge can be. And the champion, meanwhile, he's beat people at chess. He's beat people at like little things, backgammon and whatever, and poker and blah, blah, blah. So then, and then where there's kind of a main mecca where the champion lives, and that has become this giant stadium where the challenges take place and are broadcast worldwide. And around that are people just camping out, waiting for their chance to maybe have a chance of fighting the champion. But there's all this like politics and stuff. And so into that environment, this kid tracks down his old friend from a long time ago where they used to be Nerf champions. And they're like, we're going to challenge him at Nerf. And then they go. And I'm like, it's so good. It's such a good, fun comic. And the art is so good. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it. People are going to love it. It's going to like blow minds. But so anyway, I was like, that 2024, that's going to be like the biggest book of 2024. And I'm looking forward to it. Who is Cecil? Hi, Cecil. Are you saying, some people are saying I look like Cecil kind of. I think that's not true. If you saw me in person, probably. But Cecil, I got skinny fat bod, unfortunately. Although I've been jogging more and more, and it fucking pumped up my calves. But my calves, they're not even that huge compared to how some people, they have just their genetics make their calves get like real big. But mine will get like, and I'm like, nice, pumped up calves, exposed those pumped up calves. And I'll just be jogging. I'm jogging around town with my backpack. And I like look at cars and I'm like, yeah, you go way faster than me. Yeah, that's okay. They call me a throwback to old technologies. I just walk everywhere. They're like, is that guy homeless? Or does he just like walking? Simply Green, beat him with a riddle. That is a good common one. But no, they beat him. What I don't want to give away if they beat him or not. There is a sequel, so things aren't 100% resolved. But it's totally contained, which is good. It's not like some of my stuff. People do issue like you can almost call them complaints. This is going all the way back to EarthBound, but they don't necessarily like the cliffhangers. But at the same time, it's a little bit of a compliment in some ways because they go, "What? I have to know. How dare you, sir?" And I'm like, okay, the only thing in my defense is the fact if you could tell a longer story like that, like sure, I could do releases that are only 100 pages of comic and then there's no cliffhanger, but then you can't get like the really cool like brand that I'm trying to build, which is like the Narwhal Joint, where like this is like a movie, like this will take you 2 hours to read, or 2 to 3 hours, and 100 pages of comics more like a TV show episode, which is still fun. But movies give you more to play with. You can try and build up to some more intense kind of emotion kind of stuff. I don't know if emotion is the goal or not with storytelling. If you're trying to garner an emotional response, I don't know. I know you definitely want your audience feeling stuff, and feelings are a little different than emotions. Feelings are unidentified emotions. So part of if you're talking about interactivity, part of what's fun about making the audience feel feelings is they have to then go back and translate those feelings into emotions. And that's like an interactive process when you're like, after the movie, it's sticking with you and you're like, man, I can't get that out of my head. Like, what is it? And sometimes if emotions are unidentified, they appear as goosebumps is the only thing. So you don't even know. Or like they appear as you saying, that's fucking badass, man. Like you don't know what emotion that is, but you're just like, that's badass. That's like the kind of stuff you want to be delivering through the vessel of storytelling. And you can do it better, or you can like shoot higher if you're going for that kind of movie length format. You could go even longer, but I really like that movie length format for some reason. Alex Witherow, that story sounds a bit like a metaphor for AI. Pretty soon some bot will outperform us at everything. Yeah, it could totally be that. Who is Cecil's puking? A modern diagnosis of Diogenes syndrome. What's that? 22 people. Cecil's going. I don't mean to stream over him, but I am kind of. I sent him a super chat and he didn't read it, so I stream over him. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so everyone know that he's streaming. Go watch that if you want. But what I was gonna do is maybe finish up some of this. Well, so I'll do this one little lettering thing publicly, and I don't know if this is good content or not, but this is not really spoilers. So I realized too, I kind of do this thing a fair amount in EarthBound, and maybe I don't know if you can do it where like what other stories I might do, but if you have a story where you're cutting around to a lot of kind of plots and checking in with people, I do like that because it can be pretty snappy and you can kind of skip time as you go, like as you're going back to new stuff every time you meet them. A little bit more time has passed that gives the audience gets to fill in the blanks, and that's kind of an interactive process. But what another thing that's kind of fun is when you pop in to check on someone, sometimes I like popping in just before the real important stuff happens. So they say get in late and out early. I'm like, that's true. And you should do that for the most part. But also sometimes it's fun to get in early and just see, like, it's like if a live stream was going and someone didn't know that the live stream was going, then the audience is like, oh my God, what are they going to do? Meanwhile, you could just be like clicking around and checking your email and, you know, walking to get a sandwich from the fridge or whatever. But people are like super like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? He doesn't even know that it's live. I can't believe it. So yeah, that would be very effective. Whatever, if you could translate that directly, literally, whatever's going on there, like a story about live streaming or whatever, having that in it would be super entertaining. But this is like a little bit more of a indirect kind of application of that. But it's the idea that you hop into the scene just a little early. What are these characters doing before the main stuff? So this guy's he's gonna eventually meet like the princess to make the slave deal trade or whatever. But we hop in the first scene and he's like, no, it's all wrong. Diddle me on a stick and throw me in a rose bush. This is bad. So that's what I'm going to change. I think that's so I can't decide. I'm like, part of what EarthBound is like saying fuck it and putting some funny shit in there, even if it's like it could if it's wrong, it can take the audience out of it a little bit, or they'll be like too much or whatever, you know. And EarthBound has some of that too much stuff, and I leave it in anyway. But like that makes me laugh, and I like that. Like I like that EarthBound, I can do that, and that energy is part of what makes it fun. But this, I was like, you know what? There's things he could say that's like way better, potentially, even just for the flow, because you're looking for flow a lot of times. So this whole page is just him basically saying gibberish. You know, like there's not that much story progression. He's just worried about something, and then we kind of find out what it is on the next page. He goes, "This is bad. This is very, very bad. This is a fine lineup for a special guest." What? This is a fine lineup for a special guest. So it's this, and I was gonna say, it's all wrong. Oh, what was the term? There's a term kind of like it's all wrong. So he goes, "It's all wrong. This is bad. This is very, very bad." See, that's like generic, but that has good flow. So I probably would leave that. I think I saw this is like one page I'm still trying to figure out. And I had a term that I was going to use here, but now that I'm live, I can't think of it. I'm going to have a sip of coffee. Let me see what you guys are saying. We can take a little tangent here because I got some questions in the chat, I think. Facundo, have you ever written short stories without images? I mean, a little bit in college. That's a question from Richard Lesueur further down. And I found those Word files the other day, and I kind of clicked into them and started reading, and I didn't like them. So that was like 15 years ago. They were very college-y, but I was thinking I want to do it. There's one guy in CG putting together a little short story anthology that's just prose. And I have a concept that I am going to try and write for him, but I actually haven't gotten the time to do it yet. But I was like, maybe for this Florida trip on the plane or something, I can try and write some of the short story for that guy. But that it's like, I do want to do that. It would be fun. That one I even more have no idea how to get to phase 2 where you're like marketing it. That was what I was talking about earlier that I didn't really wrap up, but marketing to the point where you can get to a 6-figure campaign seems tough, obviously. But it's like big YouTube channel, that's pretty, and maybe shout outs from like bigger YouTube channels, blah, blah, blah. But it's definitely, and then word of mouth helps a lot. And that will strike and hit there, and you'll get some of that. That helped EarthBound a lot. And part of that with EarthBound, it was the word of mouth combined with the bigger YouTube channels. It was actually like word of mouth amongst the bigger YouTube channels. And that was a little bit like lightning in a bottle because it was still kind of early. So EarthBound was one of the first standout indie campaigns that wasn't from the industry that had gotten kicked out. It was from coming up out of nothing. So it's kind of like a discovery. So people had that feeling, that the kind of hipster feeling that they discovered it. That helps. Like that helped it. Rather than if you're emailing, like if I had emailed your boy Zach and been like, I really have a comic I think you'll like, sir. I hope that you like it. And if you do, would you please help me promote it? Like, he might not even read it if I did that. But the fact that he just happened to back it, happened to read it, then he did a huge video about it because it felt like this discovery to him. He's very excited about it. So I don't know how you like manipulate that stuff to help you. Sometimes it just takes time. But another little interesting thing is, especially it'll still be maybe a year or two before I kind of really start pulling this trigger or whatever it is. But it's like once Cerberus is done, both volumes, so Cerberus, Grand Prix will be close, at least volume 1. So the first 3 issues, a full book, will be done like in a year or so. Then like it's like, yeah, the books, I'll have like 10 books or something. Like it'll literally be like a stack on a shelf that you can buy if you buy the Narwhal Completionist, and it would cost, a lot of money, whatever, like $250. And at that point, it's almost like ungainly for me to even figure out what to do with it. I don't know. Like I could try and set it up on Amazon for pay on demand. I could try and get someone to just help me with a eBay store, or I could like look a little bit more seriously for like publishing options, which that is something I'm thinking about too. I was like, yeah, but like it's coming up, or like I'm at like 7 or 8 now, and these are big books too, and they're all good. So I'm like, yeah, let's keep going. Diogenes was a philosopher who lived in a barrel. Ha! Nice. That does speak to me. No, you're the best, Cecil. Who is Cecil? So it's a guy named Who is Cecil who misidentifies people as Cecil. That's funny. That's meta. Holy hand grenades. Who cares? He eschewed extravagant things like utensils. Oh yeah, about Diogenes. What did you learn about writing at Evergreen? A lot of what I learned was I was doing it on my own. I was reading script writing books, watching a lot of movies, and writing scripts. Writing scripts kind of helped the most because you write a lot of early stuff I wrote was really bad. And then so I didn't learn that much from Evergreen. The other thing about Evergreen was most of the teachers were super pretentious, and it sucked. And so it was kind of annoying, and there's not much you can do. And then, but I met a few that kind of weren't, and that kind of helped. I hung out with them, did some comic stuff with them, like my senior year or whatever. So, but overall, the Evergreen experience wasn't that bad, except I just didn't know what I was doing anyway. Like if I could have talked to myself of that age, I would be like, yo, do not just like party every weekend. Like start now to like try and, but it's funny too, because I wasn't good enough. So like you don't really have the motivation because you know you're not good enough. I almost gave up for like 2 years at a time. I wouldn't write because I think I saw at one point I was really into The Usual Suspects because that has a really cool twist and it's a very clever and fun movie. And I was like, I could never write anything like that. And I'm like, what's the point if I can't ever write anything like that? And so then I kind of gave up for like 2 years. But then eventually you get inspiration and you get back to it. And then the other part of my education that helped a lot was I did have a unofficial mentor who's just a buddy who's a little bit older than me. His name was Lou Dorge, and he worked at a video store, and he was trying to get a movie project going in Austin. And so I moved there, and then we met through Craigslist, and he wanted an artist and stuff. So I was doing art for him for his movie project. He was getting me free rentals at the movie store, and he was telling me what movies to watch, and he'd seen like every movie, and he's telling me to watch like not even like, I don't know, like if you like say, I want to get into movies and you Google it, you'll get a bunch of lists. He was giving me stuff that's not even on those lists, that it's like nowadays too, in the internet, it's even more like you can find the more obscure stuff. But I don't know. For example, he gave me one to watch to inspire. Uh, yeah, so this is a good one. One that really inspired Foreign Agent. It's called The Shooting, and it's a Monty Hellman Western starring Jack Nicholson as the bad guy. It's famous for being super low budget. It pretty much has no sets. It's like people on horses, and there's the cast is like 5 people. And like it's a cool story though. It's actually really fun structure. And just speaking of story structure, like the structure of The Shooting is like a map. So the structure is people are following someone, and then someone is following the follower. And so you're just figuring out that situation, why they're following, what they're up to, what they're doing. That's the story. And it's amazing. It's super minimalist. The story's great though. It's a really fun, cool movie. And you're like, dude, literally the budget for that could be like, I don't know, like $5,000 or something. Like you could make it today for $0 if you had horses and people. You could make a version of it without horses, and it could be actually, now that you mention it, that inspires me. I always get into the low budget stuff. That's like where a lot of inspiration these days. I always think it's fun. In high school, I loved Magic the Gathering, and I used to challenge myself to make only decks with common cards, and I could still try and beat people even though they were using rare cards. That was like so I always get drawn to that stuff, and it's almost like self-limiting potentially, but you can snap out of it. But for filmmaking, you got to start low budget anyway. So I mean, this is a good skill to build, and that comes through in the comics here and there. One thing it gives you is a little bit of the skill that, like, yeah, you can make. Well, like for example, just suspense. Like suspense, it's like once you know how to do it, it's easy enough. But kind of really figuring that out can take a little bit. And suspense is great because it's kind of low budget. It's like you're just all you're doing is controlling the point of view of the audience and who they get privy to, whose point of view of the characters and what's happening. And so you can easily make 2 people talking very suspenseful with just a little suspense. I'll give you an example. Even this is like a short film I was thinking I might want to make because I was like, oh, that's a good suspense example. But I took it from the Cask of Amontillado, the Edgar Allan Poe short story, which is also, it's exactly like that basically. But it's idea like one friend calls the other and he's like, hey, did this guy like screw you over a year ago for like a couple grand or something? And the guy's like, yeah. And he's like, well, he's here right now. And the guy's like, does he know that you know me? And the guy's like, no. And he's like, oh, okay, well, keep him there and I'm coming over. Like that. So the boom, then you've got the suspense. Like, because it's all set up what the audience knows what's happening. You basically have that. If that were a trope, it's like the guy walking into a trap. So the guy, we know this guy in a certain amount of time, someone's going to walk through that door and then they're going to like beat him up or take his money or something because they're mad at him. And meanwhile, he doesn't know that. So we're like, if it were a movie too, as that were happening, there are ways you could play with the audience alignment. Like, who do we root for? Like, is this guy, he screwed this dude out of $2 grand. Is that the real story? That's one side of the story. What's his side? And you can kind of reveal that kind of stuff. Switch audience alignments halfway through, blah, blah, blah. I think it's funny from that starting point, it can actually build out to be like a movie, like a 2-hour story. But one thing that I've noticed with that is that 2-hour movies, when you're writing a 2-hour movie script, this comes up with if I'm collaborating with someone too, is like, there's a lot of stuff that happens in a 2-hour movie. So you could pretty much pack everything your heart desires into it and see where you're at then. Like, I know Tarantino will have a problem where he'll write and it will get up to 300 pages, the script. I don't usually have that problem. Like, if I write everything my heart desires, it can sometimes get to 120, and then maybe I'll cut it to 110 or whatever. But sometimes I'm struggling to just reach 90 if it's some of these low budget ones where you can't go too many crazy places because you're kind of limited by what you're trying to do with it. And when you finish those, I'm like, it's a good test if I'm like, this would work as a comic. So you're still not even getting, like, it's low budget. You don't get any of the advantages that a comic would give you, yet it still would be entertaining. That means you have some suspense there. You have some paranoia or mystery, intrigue, all that kind of stuff. The drama. J.D. Kirby. Alexander the Great wanted to fulfill a wish for Diogenes and asked him what he desired. As told by Diogenes the artist, Diogenes replied, "Stand out of my light." Okay. One day, observing a child drinking out of his hand, he cast away the cup from his wallet with the words, "A child has beaten me in the plainness of living." That's funny. Shoot, what does that remind me of? I don't know. Some of that could be inspirational for one of the episodes of Percival, because Percival travels and meets all these people, and each story be around him. Narwhal, do a SCP story. You'd kill it. Is SCP? I think I know, but it's like the YouTube. I forget what it's called. Like the fake advertising thing. I don't know. Is that a furry in a cage? Men will disown you for this transgression. Yeah, but it's kind of funny. Like it's sort of a joke. You'll see. I don't know. An easy way to make 6 figures, put cyberfog in the channel. I'm not sure if that's true, but maybe. You know, one thing is like with the 6 figures is what Matt C mentioned this, talked about this. It's called survivorship bias, or like you could just call it like winner's bias or whatever. But so someone who makes a 6-figure campaign, they'd be like, "Oh, it's easy. You just do this, this, and this. Like I made it, and so just do what I say." That's the bias because they actually don't know either. They're kind of guessing, and you can't really test what they say. It could be a blind spot, something that they can't identify. The X factor is why it made 6 figures. So nobody really knows, you know, whatever does it. But one thing, obviously, what helps is great books, and the meritocracy is there, so you can do it. But then, you got to get out there, reach people, get the word of mouth. You got all that kind of stuff. There possibly is an element of navigating the drama, which is frustrating. And I'm not even sure how good I'm doing that. Like that shit makes me paranoid too. I'm going to get more coffee real fast. Hold on. I'm going to share with audio. You guys can listen to the hipster music I'm listening to. Be right back. Oh. Sometimes putting things out on the internet feels like casting a message in a bottle into an ocean of messages and bottles. Who knows what ones pluck one bottle from another? Yeah, I think there is something real about the psychology. This is like the Inception kind of thing, but people have to feel like they're the ones who picked the message out of the bottle. It doesn't work that good if you go to people and shove the message in their hand and ask them to read it. People like the experience of discovery with this on the internet. And so if you got to fake that, and then, yeah, I don't know. Because you can't really rely on that happening naturally if you're actually trying to really build fast. I wonder speaking of the survivorship bias, though, like, there is something to be said, like, people say if they make, like, their first million or whatever, or their first 10 million, they're like, I could lose everything and I could do it again now. And I'm like, I do feel that way a little bit about comics, but it's not 6 figures. It's like, I could lose everything. I could just start a campaign, see how much it makes, fulfill it. It's just me writing, me drawing, you know, and then you're building off that. Um, but I don't know. I don't know what I was saying. Those who can do, those who can't teach. Those who can do, those who can't teach. Okay, I only saw Tiller Blacktop and it was boring AF. Yeah, I kind of tracked that down and started watching it, and I turned it off. But it didn't seem like it was terrible. But simply agree. A lot of filler these days. Tight 90 over filled 120. Paranormal Activity was extremely low budget, and it's fucking ass. Made so much profit. You can do it, Narwhal. You're a much better writer. I guess. See, that movie, I enjoyed it, but I know what you're saying. But it's like, it's just, I just appreciate that they're able to pull it off. Like the fact that you can even, with that simple concept, use so many limitations, and you make a movie that's not boring. At least, you know, I think I might have even seen it in the theater. It's like not boring, at least in the theater. Maybe it is boring if you like kind of don't buy into it. But that's another one. Even do you guys see or hear about Skin in the Rink? So that one is like legitimately potentially boring, but I like that one too. I really liked it. Julie Pascal, creepy pasta. I forget what I was talking about when some of this was coming up, but yeah. The most savage philosopher of all time. If you want a fun, quick down on Diogenes. Yeah, I do want to check him out. It's pretty much for the Percival. I think it totally would fit with Percival. To meet a guy like that, because the thing that's fun about the Percival story too is like I kind of, even though I haven't written it yet, I like know what it is in my head immediately. Like it is like it's like him, and through the pain of the Holy Grail effing with him, kind of reaching enlightenment, but just through being broken. Because he'll like get the Holy Grail and he'll take it all the way back, and as he enters the kingdom to give it to his king, it will disappear. Like it was effing with him the whole time. And then after 25 years, it seems like it has finally let him have it because he's fully broken now. So he can actually hold it. But there's these like rules he knows he has to follow that he's learned over 25 years, that like you have to hold it lightly. That means like if anyone asks, can they hold it? You have to hand it to them. You can't just be like, no, then it's gone if you do that. And that gets him into trouble because people can basically steal it from him by just asking for it. And he has to heal anyone whose path he comes across. He has to heal the land, and he can't heal himself. This is the other one, the other kind of rule. But then he's like meeting people, and yeah, a lot of it would be like, I don't know if it's like philosophy or whatever, but to me, it's like relatable as an artist point of view. A lot of it of what art can feel like if you imagine that, we don't relate to this fully, but if you imagine what it feels like to write a book and then accidentally have all the pages burned before you get it published, like that's the worst feeling. You know, you'd almost want to kill yourself, kind of. That's like what Percival has had to go through over and over again. So I know one story is he would meet a writer where that kind of happens to the writer. And the writer wants to read his book to the king. And I even thought of a little kind of funny thing is that the king either can't read or doesn't want to read. So he has a reader. And not that many people can read. And the reader really doesn't like the writer. So the reader deliberately changes the ending to his story, and then the king gives it a bad review because the reader effed him over. And so then he has to kind of deal with that. And I think he would actually like talk shit to the king because the king, he like loses his cool because he's mad at the king for ripping on his masterpiece. And so the king is going to chop his head off, and Percival would be the one to kind of like get to the bottom of it and figure it out. And it's like, that's not, in my head, I pictured it as like, this is like a Star Trek episode. Like it's all like interpersonal, like moral quandaries and stuff like that, rather than whatever the alternative is. And yeah, he could definitely meet like the minimalist philosopher that gives him a new kind of approach to what being broken can mean. And he would immediately be interested because he's like, shit, maybe this will help me carry the Holy Grail better. And so he would kind of be thinking about that kind of stuff a little bit. Ethan drove JD Kirby mad with his Barbie take. Yeah, that's awesome. I think hopefully. It was infiltrated. Damn it! Haven't kept up with it. I've just seen the ads on YouTube for it, and I didn't really get what it was. Jordan Horse, what's up? Alex Witherow. I think there's a comic customer base out there that's just starved for decent stories. What Marvel and DC are putting out is so disappointing now. Well, so one thing I was thinking, yeah, like, so this is 17 people watching. This is me live streaming, so forgive me. Like, I don't think I would tweet this, but because it's just us, I will say, like, I was just lettering EarthBound Grand Prix, and I'm like, I think this is better than Saga. And, Saga, like, won a bunch of awards, and freaking that writer used to be one of my favorite writers. I forget his name now, but he's a really good writer, and the art is great, is pretty good. Saga got a little weird and woke, but that's a cool book, and that's a cool sci-fi book. I'm like, yo, EarthBound is better than that. So like, where's the audience for this book? Like, people would love this if they could get their hands on it. Hey, no, will you help publish Disintegration Street Volume 3? Do you think this is the best CG book? What it might be, it's like Volume 5 now it's up to. So eventually, yeah, Brendan, if he needs anything like that, we'll figure it out. Brendan's helping me with my own project too, or we're collaborating. I'm hiring him to write something for me. And I told him I want to make Disintegration Street into an animated movie. And I don't know how or when we'll be able to do that. But that would require a little bit of like redrafting it into a movie format. So it would change a little bit, but he could help with that. And he's into some of that stuff. I do pretty much think it's the best, more or less, I guess. It's kind of my favorite. But that's one, like, so when I was in high school, there was a kid, I played a lot of basketball, and there was a kid who never made varsity right away. I think he might have made varsity our senior year, but then maybe he didn't even play that year. But this is just like middle school and stuff. But I knew he had good court vision, and I knew he was smart, and so I really liked that. And so I'd always pick him, and if I was team captain or whatever, I'd pick him first. And to me, it's like that hipster discovery thing. I felt like I discovered him. But then I was kind of making predictions too. I was like, this guy's good. He's going to be like varsity high score by senior year. I don't know if I said that, but I was kind of thinking it. And yeah, he never did. He never got all that great. He's a good guy, but it's like, so the feeling of discovery, and it could be your baby, that it's like, I know other people might not have that for Disintegration Street. So I don't know, like, I don't know if I can if I say like objectively, I can say like, it's like, it's kind of like, feels like, real art, like a real freaking piece of work put into the world. Not that other books and comics aren't like that, but it's like more like that. That's an objective way where you could rate it real high. That could be one too, where wherever this audience that we haven't fully found for that book yet, they're out there and they would love it. And I don't know how to get it to them exactly, but even within Comicsgate, people love it. Tom Tuttle DM me, he's like, thank you so much for recommending that book. That book was a lot of fun. I thought there was a Disintegration Street Volume 3. Yeah, but I thought it might be like up to Volume 5 now or something. I don't know. I forget. I think there's 4 volumes published now. Maybe just 3. But anyway, it's almost done. There's 1 volume left to go. Once it's all done, then Brendan might compile it all into like either 2 or 1 really big one. And then, yeah, if he wants, we can potentially do that on my channel. And yeah, we'll see. I thought the last book was Volume 2. No, there's definitely been a Volume 3. That's interesting. That goes to show you that Brendan, like books come out that we don't see because there's so much going on. like I worry about that even just with EarthBound. I'm like, I hope people know. Like it's kind of, you always get a little bummed if someone messages you after the campaign ends and they're like, I would have backed it, but I didn't see it. And I'm like, ah. Other side picnic did something a bit like that, kind of Lovecraftian world. And less sane you become, the more you're able to interact with the world and see it as it is. Yeah. That's cool. That would be kind of like Percival would be like. He's just kind of like a broken dude. And the thing too is he would know, like there'd be some kind of good weird, speaking of earlier I was saying feelings versus emotions, there'd be some good like feelings. And I think that's some stuff that I gravitate towards and like, where it's like can't even identify exactly what it is, but so the feeling is he knows that he's not going to be broken forever. He knows that he will slowly heal this like trauma that the Holy Grail has caused him. But then he knows that the Holy Grail is going to leave when that happens. So he knows that he doesn't have infinite time with the Holy Grail. And he kind of doesn't want to heal. Then for that reason, I'm like, dude, you guys ever know, this is like a negative thing you shouldn't do, but have you ever had the feeling after a bad breakup potentially where you kind of want to stay sad for a little bit or something? This is like a negative. You shouldn't do that, but I think people can kind of relate to that. And that's like you got to say goodbye to the sadness eventually and let it go or whatever. But and move on. But that's like, the Holy Grail shit is touching on all that stuff. And then another one that I thought, I was like, oh, dude, there's so much kind of good stuff potentially. But the other one is if he has the Holy Grail, say he gets all the way to the end. That's like if you're running a speed run of Super Mario and you get right to the end, It's like that's when you screw it up. That's when you psych yourself out and I messed it up. So that's like very relatable. I don't know. There's some other kind of stuff I was thinking of, I wanted to put in there, but and the Holy Grail, it heals pretty much anything. So it's kind of this magical item that you can tell a lot of stories just about the healing. Like someone getting healed. There's a lot of ways that story could be played kind of interestingly and fun. Like for example, there could be like I'd have to think about this a little bit more, but say there's like a situation where there's no way out and they're screwed. Like they were under siege in a castle and the castle's on fire. They're surrounded by fire. They're all going to burn. But like Percival can't heal himself, but he can give someone like a flask of the Holy Grail water, or maybe just give him the Holy Grail or something. And he's like, you can run through the flames while drinking this and it's going to evaporate pretty quick, but you'll be able to get 50 yards if you sprint, and it's going to be the biggest pain you've ever felt in your life, but you're not going to die. The Holy Grail won't let you die. And then so someone would get out and like whatever, be able to blow up the dam and stop the fire, whatever. So then even with that, like I know Percival would be, there's probably other times where this comes up, but he would have like a ton of guilt and stuff. But the traveling healer is like a trope that make TV shows about. They just stumble into a situation where their services are needed for whatever reason. And it can be kind of weird outside the box type stuff sometimes. Like it could be like you could use it like in an offensive way, even. Or like if there's a king that needed to be suicided or whatever. This is a little bit like getting through the fire too, but like almost like faking a death to get close to him, using the Holy Grail water to do that kind of stuff. There's an episode you could do that. Simply Game. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you branching into other media. I want to do that ASAP so bad, and it's hard though. Like time makes it hard, money makes it hard. It's like things have to happen in order. I have to build up the connection with artists to even make it possible. Have some money. But yeah, I think so too. Julie Pascal says the Icelandic translation of Dracula was improved by the translator, and they only found out a few years ago. That's cool. Alex Witherow. I discovered Sergio Tappi recently. I don't think he wrote any really long stories. They're all like short fairy tales or fables, but they're neat. I would read those. I'm still on my fairy tale kick. I read another good one the other night. Let's see if I can remember what it was about. Oh yeah, it was so good, and it had the freaking feelings instead of emotions kind of thing. So see if I can relate it back. Oh man, it was so good. It's maybe the best one I've read ever. And I immediately thought I want to like utilize this somehow, either adapt it directly or kind of take this idea. So I'll see if I can tell you guys. So it's like it starts with like I think it's a king and a queen, really happy. They have 3 daughters. And do they have a son? No, there's 3 daughters. And then the 3 daughters are playing in the garden one day. They're having a beautiful day in the garden, and a dark cloud, the daughters kind of run off, and a dark cloud encapsulates them, and then they're gone. And then the husband and wife call for them once dinner's done and they want to go home, and they can't find them. So they kind of freak it out. They're like mourning them. They basically, the girls have been kidnapped and they're gone. The metaphor is like child kidnapping, but magically they just disappeared. And they were gone for like a long time because they were girls when they were abducted. But then like kind of years passed. And then these 2 generals of the king, because the king is like, if anyone can get my daughters back, you can marry any of the daughters you want, and I'll give you a ton of money, blah, blah, blah. You'll live happily ever after. So 2 generals, they're like, let's go for it. Let's try. And then I even thought I would implement this idea. This would be in a Percival episode if I put it in a Percival thing. But it's like on an island, so they have to choose which way, and you can't really go through. This is not in the fairy tale, but this is my idea. You can't go over the mountains, but you can go around the shore. So you have to pick which direction to go. It's like your first choice. And these guys, you end up finding out they kind of picked wrong because they're just traveling the entire island. The girls might not even be on the island, but they're traveling almost all the way around the island. And by that point, they'd run out of everything, all their money, all their food. And they'd end up having to just, now we are back. This is back to the actual tale. They have to stay with this innkeeper and just work for him because they just are totally out of money. So then cut back to the kingdom, and then a dude who the story's called The Tale of like a Benegade or something. I forget his name. It's like a weird name, and he's awesome. But he was an assistant to the king, and he's like, let me try and see if I can get your daughters back. And the king's like, no, I can't lose you 2. I've already lost 2 generals. They're gone forever. And he's like, I think I can do it. And the king's like, okay, I guess, but whatever. So he goes the other way on the island, and he gets to the generals kind of quickly with still a lot of money and a lot of shit or whatever. And he pays the innkeeper. He recognizes the generals, pays the innkeeper. They come with him. All 3 of them now are going to try and rescue these girls if they can even find them. So then they maybe do find a path kind of into the island, and they meet like a woman. And again, she's kind of like, I don't even want to tell you because you're just going to go and die. That trope comes up a lot in fairy tales where it makes me laugh. I'm like, I automatically like that when people are like, I don't even want to tell you because you're just going to do it and then you're going to die. But so she just says that. And then they're like, you got to tell us now. You can't just not tell us after you say that. So you're telling us, like, come on. She's like, seriously though, you're going to die. And they're like, just tell us. And she's like, all right, you go to the raging river. Deep beneath the river is like 2 ogres and a dragon. The sisters are each controlled by one of them. And there's no way you're going to survive. You're going to be so screwed. So don't even bother. And they're like, whatever. So they're going, and they go to the river, and then they have a system like a portal system where you tie a rope around your waist. You go into the river, and they have they call it a bell, but the bell wouldn't ring. You wouldn't hear it in the river or the raging waters that scares them. And that would ring the bell too. So that part sort of doesn't make sense, but I think it means it's like a magical bell or just a system. Like it's almost like just tugging on the rope is like the system, but they call it a bell. Or maybe the bell's hanging on the top of the rope. I think that is what it is. The bell's on the top of the rope above the water, and if they tug it a bunch, it'll ring the bell. And so the first general goes down, and he doesn't make it all the way. He gets too freaked out by the water, and so he comes back up. Second general goes down. He gets a little bit further, but same thing. He can't hold his breath long enough, and it's super intense in the river. So they pull him, he rings the bell, they pull him back up. So then Benegade goes down, and he's like, I'm just not going to come back. Like, I'm either going down there and I'm going to die, or like, the water is not going to stop me. That's kind of what he says. So he keeps going down, and he just goes for it, and he does make it. So then he's in basically like the first ogre's lair, and he sees the girl right there, and the first sister, and she's like, don't talk, you're gonna wake him up. And she's like, what are you here for? He's like, I'm here to rescue you. And then the ogre starts to wake up, and so he hides, and then the ogre's like, I smell a human. And she's like, a human can never even get down here, what are you talking about? Go back to sleep. So he's like, oh, okay, I guess. So he does, and then Benegade is like, whoosh, chops his head off. So he rescued the first sister. They go into the second layer. Kind of the same thing happens. They rescue her too. Then they go to the third, and they're like, you're never going to be able to save the third. Don't even try the sisters. And he's like, come on, we got to try. And so they go in, and he fights the dragon and beats it fair and square too. Not even like clever. Like, this is how he did it. He used this trick, and he had this thing he got earlier, like a gift from someone, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, he just like sword fought it. It was a pretty epic battle, and then he won. So then he's rescued everyone now. He did the girl that was guarded by the dragon is the youngest princess. And she's kind of the most beautiful. And she's the one that you imagine he and her have an instant connection. And so he takes everyone back to the rope. He rings it, and they pull the first sister up, and they send the rope back down. They pull the second sister up, and they send the rope back down. And then he's going to send up the youngest daughter. And she's like, I have a terrible feeling that I'm never going to see you again if I go first. I want you to go first. And he's like, I can't leave you down here alone. You have to go before me. Don't worry. They're my friends up there. Like, they're not going to screw me. Like, there's absolutely no reason. And she's like, okay. So she goes up. Sure enough, the generals in the heat of the moment, they realize, like, we could get all the reward. That guy is making us look bad anyway. We were cowards. We don't want that story getting back to it. Let's just leave him down there. So they take the girls and walk away. And they tell the girls too, they're like, if you tell anyone about that he's down there, what really happened, we will kill you. And so they go back, and they get to marry the two older sisters, and they're living happily ever after. The youngest daughter, she's staying, she will not marry anyone, and she's kind of depressed and bummed. And meanwhile, Benegade is down there, and he's like, well, shit, they did screw me. And he's down there for like kind of a long time. Like, I don't know if it's like 6 months, or it's a long time though. There's like, the ogres had food, so he's eating that. He's kind of just thinking and walking around exploring, see if he can find anything to help him to maybe get out of there. And then after like 6 months, but it could be like 2 years. It's a long time. It might be 2 years. It's a long time he's down there. It's a bummer. He finds this magical purse, and it says, what do you want? He's like, I want to be out of here on the shore by that river. And then he's on the shore by the river. It's like, what else do you want? He's like, give me a freaking huge ass boat and like a big like kingdom, like a legion of people to help me in an army kind of thing. And boom, he has that. So he sails to the kingdom, and then like the king sees him coming, and it's like, shit, that king has got it going on. I got to be his friend because I do not want him to be my enemy. So he invites him in, and they're having dinner, and then the old king is like, you know what? You would make a perfect match for my daughter. She has this weird thing where she misses this guy, so she won't marry anyone. But maybe she'd marry you because you're just like a really cool guy. And he's like, sure, let me meet her. And she meets him, and she's like, she won't even kind of look at him, and she's like, I told you I'm saving myself. He's never coming. I'm just gonna die a spinster because it's just him or nobody. And then he kind of grabs her, and he's like, what if I told you that I am him? And she looks at him, and they like embrace, and it's like the happiest ending ever. And I forget the exact line because it's so good. The moment I'm like, dude, that set that up perfectly. and it's like so badass. And I think he might say like, "What if I told you I could make that happen for you? That you would meet him again?" But then she looks at it as him, and then they do find out that the frickin' general screwed him over, so they kick them out and they go into exile, and that's the end of the story. And all of that's like simple, but it's like they set it up really good that he got screwed for a reason that he legitimately didn't see coming, and it does make sense that the generals would only make that decision in the moment. They wouldn't be scheming. For like murder, they say, is it a crime of passion or is it premeditated? That's actually like a writer's concept, a little bit of like, are people planning this or is it in the moment? And it's an in the moment decision. It feels very natural and cool. It's like cool storytelling. That stuff gets more at like, it feels like more real than some fairy tales feel like they're hitting the beats or whatever. And even this, like, it's hitting the beats when it's like he gets the one ogre, saves the one princess, gets the second ogre, there's the second princess. But they know they're hitting the beats for that part too, because it kind of goes fast, almost like a joke, kind of. But then the way it sets up that shit is really good. And then the payoff, I'm like, if that was in a modern movie, like, that would be like really awesome, happy ending. And also the connection that they had, super fast, but that if he saves 3 girls and it's the last girl who's the youngest and most beautiful that he has the connection with, and then she warns him, and they've only been together like 10 minutes, but she's like, if you don't come back up, I'm not going to marry anyone, just so you know. And he's like, don't worry, I'll be up. And then like, I'm like, that's awesome. Sorry, what are you guys saying? Write esoteric Sasquatch novels for women. I believe in you. Maybe. Jason, chug pickle juice, please. I chugged too much the other night. We got 29. Did Cecil end his stream? I got a few people coming in. Have a concept in mind for a deep space scavenger. Spent so long out in deep space alone, he's lost it hallucinating, but he's also developed a keen sense of what is real or not. Now I'd Lovecraft. See, that's cool. Okay, I guess, but whatever. Alex Witherow, I'm invested in this story. Write it up. Yeah, it's funny because the fairy tales, they're free. That's public domain. And that other thing is like, there's actually like 5,000 of them. And there's overlap. A lot of them are similar, have similar elements. But there's like 5,000 fairy tales. So like you can find the ones that feel pretty like legit, That one's freaking legit AF. But it would be an episode of Percival, and Percival would be kind of in there. Actually, I don't even know how I do this, but I want to do the kind of Mad Max structure where the story isn't about Percival. The story is about these lovers that got separated, where it would be pretty much that story where the guy needs to get back, and maybe Percival's the one to help him. Percival ends up down there and they have to escape together. Something like that. I don't know. DJ2K, can you watch Barbie and make the ultimate review? I actually do want to see it now. The way everyone's been talking about it, I think so we can't choose the movies that hit the zeitgeist like this. One that hit it that I don't particularly think is as great as everyone else does is Joker. So Barbie and Joker are like similar in the way that they're hitting the zeitgeist. And Joker made $1 billion. Barbie's going to make $1 billion. The haters were kind of predicting like Weekend 2, people will realize that the marketing was a bait and switch, so then it'll have a huge drop off. That was like kind of the prediction. Pretty sure that's not going to happen. Like whatever, I could totally be wrong too, but I think it's going to do really good and it's going to make $1 billion, maybe more, whatever. The other thing I'm thinking is like, what's funny? They're definitely going to do a sequel. They have so much to play with because of the reaction of Barbie, the way it struck such a chord. There's more they could do. There's more they could do with Ken. People love Ken. They want to see Ken. And it ends with, apparently Barbie ends with Ken walking off, to find himself in Barbie land. I'm like, dude, you could do a lot with that. Speaking of my Percival idea, like you could have Ken. Like Kung Fu, the legend continues. Ken just like wandering Barbie land, encountering old toys and helping them as he tries to find himself. That wouldn't be what the sequel would be about, but but at least to illustrate that there's a lot. The sequel will be good. The sequel, it'll be another like tons of money, and I bet you it'll be like pretty fun, like the way the Dark Knight is to Batman Begins. Like there's still a lot of crazy shit they can do with it. Yeah, that's about some of my initial rants without even seeing it. Holy Hand Grenades. Where can I find the story again? The books I've been reading that's called the Gray Fairy Tale book, the Red Fairy Tale book. They're just colors, and it's freaking. Is it Fritz Lang is the author? I think it is. Cecil Raid, Jedi Knight of Snyder Cult. What's up? What's up? Headrock. Why is there a basketball game in the background? What is that? A basketball game? I don't know. Doing something 3 times is important in fairy tales. I know it's a little annoying. Sometimes I'll skip paragraphs because I know what they're doing. Like, oh, it's just going to happen again. Need some nice light dining music. Slayer, anyone? Do it, Narball. I like Joker a lot. Yeah. So Joker and Barbie are like opposites, but like in a way that completes each other. It's like yin and yang. But the other thing is there's one possible other like proto thing of what's going on with Barbie. And I've changed some of what I was saying too. When I noticed people were talking about like the bait and switch marketing, I was like, oh, it's going to age terribly. And now I'm like, I think it actually might age really well because it's getting immortalized because everyone is getting it kind of reacting incorrectly. But the last time, not the last time, but there was a time where that happened pretty famously, and it was Starship Troopers, where everyone said that, oh, this is a stupid fascist movie. It's so off-putting how fascist it is. All the critics at the time said that, and they all kind of were made fools of because that movie, people realize as time goes on, it becomes a cult classic, and they're like, oh yeah, it's satirizing fascism. And it is, Barbie is almost like it's satirizing feminism. Like, I'm sure it's not, like, I'm sure it's feminist, but there's some stuff. I saw some clips. There's one clip where, like, they have a guy saying, Ken's like, so can I, like, get a good job just because I'm a guy? Because that happens here. And the guy goes, actually, it's kind of the opposite right now. And I was like, what? Barbie says that? They're based, they are aware of, like Ethan was saying, it's like all the points of views are represented. So at that point, you could say it's like a straw man if they make that guy a piece of shit. Then you have the piece of shit guy is saying the right thing. SJWs will sometimes do that. But then the guy says, like, yeah, but the patriarchy is a thing, but we just got to keep it secret. We're still benefiting from it. So I'm like, okay, they have the piece of shit guy saying sort of like both sides. He's saying things that both sides would agree with, and he's a piece of shit. So that's like where people are saying like the movie is confusing or nuanced. It's like one or the other or both, but it's like not nailing you on the head with this bad, this good, this bad, this good. And it is presenting literally if you want your point of view in there, that guy says it. Like, that's the one thing I was hoping Barbie would say is that it's almost the opposite of the patriarchy right now, and that's like real. But yeah, her and the Steadfast Joker was good though. I think Barbie is good too. Pretty sure. EarthBound Grand Prix. I was neutral on Joker, nothing special. That's how I feel. That one suffered a little bit from, what's going to happen. And then I was kind of like, well, once you know what's going to happen, I was a little bit like waiting for it to happen. Like, he's going to snap at some point. Like, okay, they're just building it up, so he's going to snap. He hasn't snapped yet. Except now that I think of it, there is some iconic scenes that are like really good. There's like, but it is as he starts to snap that it gets really good. I went in thinking Joker would suck. I was pleasantly surprised. They'll milk it till it's dry. I always hope my arch nemesis would be intelligent and witty. Can't always get what we want. Oh, is that like Joker versus Barbie? That is, I think Joker versus Barbie is like the thing, kind of. And that is one a little bit like Joker, you would say, you know, it's you're not the target audience. It's not made for you, in a way that's hopefully not super annoying and super BS. Same with Barbie. Like they can kind of say that, you know, but obviously SJWs do say that, and when they infiltrate something that is traditionally male, and then say that, then you're like f off. You're like literally a cancer that's spreading. Hedrick says, "Sup, Norwal." Thanks, Norwal. I need to check that out. Which Scorsese did Barbie movie rip off wholesale? Dude, it might not be Scorsese, but I bet you it does have some kind of like influences that are all artsy fartsy. I brought up the Starship Troopers example just 10 minutes ago. Yeah, definitely. Percival series sounds great. Would you write and draw it or commission somebody else? I'd want to do both for Percival. I would want to get as much content as possible. So I feel like I could write like infinite episodes. And so like I would get writers, and I'd get other writers writing too. And yeah, it'd be fun. I think that would be pretty fun to do it that way. But I would do the main, I'd have one movie style story that is like Percival's final trip to get the Holy Grail to King Arthur. And I wonder. Headrock says it's not satirizing fashion. That's the point. Starship Troopers is not a fascist book. The movie really tries but fails. So what about that for the intent of the filmmaker? Are you saying he wasn't trying to make a satire? Because I think they say that about RoboCop, even Paul Verhoeven, that they're both satires. RoboCop is a harder one to spot, and it functions just not as a satire too. But I think it, like Starship Troopers, it gets like funny. It's like there's jokes pretty basically. Starship Troopers is badass. I remember I used to ask my dad to rent it all the time. Me too. I saw that there was something weird too, that it had the preview was released, I think like 2 or 3 years before the movie came out for some reason. And I want to look that up and see what happened with history or whatever. Because I remember seeing the trailer and being like, I have to see that. That's amazing. You know, I was like 10 years old or whatever. And then being like, whatever happened to that movie? I was thinking that. Then in high school, I'm like, what? It did come out? It came out at some point? So I'm going to make an excellent review of the politics of Starship Troopers. It's great. I'd check that out. Back EarthBound Grand Prix. Oh, yeah. Has anyone... We got one backer so far. One backer. It's gone up a little bit. It's actually ticking close to... What is it? Ticking close to 12K. So that's the goal. Let's see where we're at. It's at 11,668. So still $300 to go. But I don't know if anyone's considering backing tonight. Definitely go for it. We want to get to 12K tonight. Put us in a position to maybe get 20K on this first campaign. And that will include the short story. And then that makes it a pretty good deal. I mean, it's like okay, especially compared to crowdfunding, it's like a good deal in the scheme of things. But if you add the short story, then it's like almost competing with just regular old mainstream comic book shopping. You pay a little shipping, and then everything else is like what it would be. Yeah, shoot, where's the window? Okay, back. I completely agreed with your Starship Troopers example. Director intent can differ wildly from the actual execution. I'd reference Alan Moore and Rorschach from Watchmen. Yeah, those are... Oh, yeah, that's another good example. That's interesting. But I think Starship Troopers, he tried to make... He made it extreme to mock it, and that was hilarious. And he did do that. And then... Barbie is like sort of doing that. Like they make the extreme to kind of mock it. You're like, is this based? That would be it. Speaking of like yeah, the different interpretation from the creators. That would be funny if Barbie eventually breaks out of. And Ethan pointed that out too. That that's sort of happening with Ken already. That Ken's everyone's favorite character, even though he's supposed to be the bad guy in the movie. And like that does happen with SJW stuff. Yeah, and the thing too, Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach, they're like a couple. They're pretty good and they're smart. Noah Baumbach is freaking annoying. I don't like him very much. Greta Gerwig, she's annoying, like in interviews, but she's good. Her movies are good, and they're like feminists, but they're not like annoying feminists. Lady Bird and Little Women are two I know she did before this, maybe another one, and they're like legit good movies. Joker felt relevant today. I also love the scene with Joker and Little Bruce. Never got those moments with the corporate cape shit. Yeah, it's like expanding. I really like your books, Narwhal, so far. None of them have been duds. Thanks, Laserbeam Hawkins. What ones have you read? If you don't mind, if I see it in the chat, I'll read it. He was trying to make a satire, but he failed. Well, he failed in the sense that nobody got it at the time, but then people got it later. I think the critics failed. This is who failed. But who knows? Like that's interesting. You could be right, but I don't know. I think that's kind of true about RoboCop, especially what you're saying, Headrock. Alex Witherow, can you make the Percival character model look like Peter Falk? He's the hero we need. Oh my God, that's awesome. The only thing is, I don't know if I can, but I love that. And I love Peter Falk. He is the hero we need. I'll think about it. I don't know, because I don't know if I can draw him and if it works for like the story. I have them kind of drawn, you know, like. Let me see. This is what he'll look like. Let me make him this big. This is his character design. You can see the pain in his eyes. And the other thing is, if you think about the Percival story and like the implications of the Holy Grail and what it means to be around it, it's like it's kind of fun. I don't know, like I don't know how I'll do it exactly, but I wrote the first kind of issues, a draft of it is written, and it's Percival and this leper kind of see it for the first time. Percival pulls it out to help the leper, and the leper's gonna like. Percival's like, you can drink from it, and the leper like immediately starts crying, and he's like, I can't because I'm not worthy. I just can't. And Percival's like, it's okay. Like nobody's worthy. You can drink from it. And they're both like crying, but they're like, I think maybe Percival, his eyes are watering. Like just being around the Holy Grail makes your eyes water, and it makes like a lump in your throat or whatever. But I don't know. It doesn't like make people like cry just every time that it's like a rule. But it is like kind of a heavy thing no matter what. But then I wonder, as a story, that's interesting because you don't build up the context to have the audience feel that too, so they can choose to throw it away and they could laugh. They're like, psh, they're laughing at, they're crying at a cup. These idiots. I'm going to put this story down. That's stupid. But they could also buy in. Like it's kind of fun if you ever can in a story, get something going real strong and fast, 0 to 100 without crazy setup that you have to take. Like, so say you could take like to build the context of having the Holy Grail mean something. It's basically like Sunday school for 10 years or whatever. And then you've like got the context and you understand the weight and the gravitas and stuff. Just a little bit. They do it a little bit with Indiana Jones, and it's like, yeah, like this is a big deal. And that one too, It's not like they have to build it up a ton. It's like within the scene, they have to build all the gravitas within the scene. And so how you do that on a comic, even where you can't have music and stuff, you know, I think I'll have it. It makes their eyes water. The book was libertarian. Verhoeven never read the book, wanted to satire fascism, and someone said his bug story sounded like it. See, yeah, that sounds pretty much like I've. That's a kind of rare one where I've read the book too, and I remember really liking it. And yeah, it's not like the movie at all. It was really good though too. But I'm trying to remember, it was like a little more regular and chill. Like I think it did have some cool action that I was into, but it was like he's like writing his dad, talking to his pen pals with his dad and stuff, and that kind of stuff. I was like, this is cool. Paul Verhoeven read like 5 pages of the book before throwing it away. He couldn't understand the book because he didn't read it. Civilians can do very well for themselves. Rico's father is a commie doctor who can't vote. Yeah. What's up, everyone? What's up, Chimera? I think I've read this one too, but I can't even remember it. I read it in like high school. I would reread it. I remember thinking that was great too. Man, remember thinking that was a really good book. That one is almost a little Percival-y, as I barely remember it. But you'll get struck for this. Oh, for the ads or whatever.
Experts ready to answer your toughest questions. Call clickgranger.com or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it.
Oh yeah, there's some. Joker movie felt experimental and pulled it off. Not sure if they can replicate that in a sequel. That's a good question too. What are they going to do for the sequel? I think that mirrors Barbie as well. What is Barbie going to do for the sequel? What is Joker going to do for the sequel? They both are coming off the lightning rod cultural zeitgeist kind of thing. Headrock. Nosferatu is by far the best CG book I've read so far. Thanks, Headrock. That's cool. Have you read EarthBound? Do you like Nosferatu more? I'm just curious. Oh, he failed in the sense that the movie contains zero fascism. Yeah, that is interesting. That's funny. How does that? That's still the critics at the time getting it wrong a little bit, which I think we don't necessarily disagree there. But yeah, the critics getting it way wrong. And yeah, because it's milquetoast a little bit if you think about it. Like the things it shows is not that fascist, and it shows like men and women showering together. Like that's not fascist. Kids, some of the propaganda stuff you could say, but that could be called something different too, just like propaganda. It might have some fascist architecture in the buildings. I didn't realize, but when I was researching that Dark Knight video about architecture, I was like, what is fascist architecture? And it's kind of like Greek style a little bit is fascist. They tried to make it kind of pretty, kind of like the Nazi uniforms. Everyone says that their like uniforms were pretty badass, like Hugo Boss or whatever. Another common argument is that in the politics in media, another common argument is the politics in media, but RoboCop, Demolition Man, those movies have a lot to say while still being fun action films. Yeah. I want to rewatch Demolition Man. I haven't seen that in a long time. To make a satire of something, you have to exaggerate that something. Never made a satire of fascism that contains no fascism at all. You've almost convinced me because it is milk toast. It's like not that fascist if you actually like look at what happens in the movie. They have a big military and they have ads that recruit people like big whoop. They say you can only vote if, but there are jokes. Like it's funny though. Like there's literal jokes. Like this part where the guy's like what does he say? An infantryman. The mobile infantry may be the man I am today. And he scoots away and he's missing his legs. And it's like that. So that's satire, but that's not necessarily like fascist satire. That's just you could almost say it's like pro-war satire. But you know what you could say it's satirizing is America. And you could I don't know if you could say America's fascist, but you know what do they call it the spectrum of politics that's like acceptable, and it's like the relativity of politics is shit. What do they call that? Anyway, that's like all the words could kind of mean different things depending on what you compare it to. I miss Nosferatu. Any chance of making that add-on for future campaigns? Yeah, that's what I got to figure out. Is I got like 10 books now, so I kind of can't offer them all every time because then the fulfillment gets really complicated and crazy. I need help. I need someone to help me publish this shit or something. You rely on existing societal understanding with multiculturalism that's a bit more fraught. The book had mech bodysuits. Joker doesn't need a sequel. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh, Joker's about being a comedian Lena Volk. That's fun. Fun little interpretation. Barbie 2 should be a musical growing up. Oh, maybe, yeah. I have Earthbound 1 and 2 here, but I haven't read any books in a while. Sorry, I did love Foreign Agent, though, even though I barely understood any of it. Thanks. That's cool. I do take that as a compliment. A lot of people do say that, but yeah. So you haven't read Earthbound 1 and 2? Give those a read sometime and let me know how you think or what you think. No pressure, no hurry. We need a Ken movie. See, that's kind of what's hilarious. They could do that and it would make a ton of money. But I think probably what they might do is they will do a sequel, and it'll there's a lot of stuff like places they could go. Ken will play a big role, I'm sure. The imagery is fastest, but the things that actually happen are the opposite. It's the weirdest thing. You gotta watch that Sargon of Akkad review. That's cool. I do want to check that out. Oh, that's cool too. Oh, the Overton window. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. So yeah, with that in mind, you could call America fascist, or like, and I don't know what the negative word is like for what America is now. But what some people say we're like a banana republic. That's what I think. Where our elections aren't real. Like that's a pretty weird thing. And that might be true of fascist states as well, but do a website with leftover books. Yeah, but even that's what I should do. But even that is like daunting. But I should do it. Figure it out. I'd have to, I don't know. I wish I had a wife. I could run my eBay store. That's all I need. Just she could be real fat as long as she'd be fat and dumb. No, dumb. Like she could be super. I don't know, super smart, genius, and make me feel like shit because she's so genius, and she could also be really fat. But as long as she ran my eBay store for me, we would have a healthy relationship. I'm just reading some of the chat here. Yeah. A lot of what you guys are saying, I agree with. It's kind of just me agreeing. Hedrick, I gotta go to bed. See you guys. It's been good. Yeah, this is a fun stream. I feel like not that much dead air and pretty good discussion the whole way through. I'll definitely keep this one up and I might retweet it and be like, hey, it's an actual good solo narwhal stream. But now, so I might end the stream here in a second. I'm kind of got to get back to what I'm trying to do. I was trying to think, what is the freaking saying that this guy says? He says, it's all wrong. Something. This is bad. This is very, very bad. I don't know. See, it's like he could say anything. This is one of the problems of like lettering. So you're just trying to find something that kind of works. Maybe it's funny. Maybe makes people laugh. Has good flow. I don't like it what it is right now in there. Diddle me on a stick and throw me in a rose bush. This is bad. See, that's like stupid. Sometimes I hear your boy Zach's voice in my head, and I think it's a good thing. Like he's just like a hater sometimes in a good way though. You'll like come to me and be like, hey, your boy Zach, what do you think about this little ditty I wrote? Pretty ridiculous, huh? Pretty good for a punk. Kind of funny little thing I put in there. A guy saying this, he'd be like, that's stupid. It's not funny. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I'll go back to the board. But you can change it. But then sometimes he does laugh at stuff, and I'm like, why'd you laugh at that? But anyway, that's not the goal. Is like you're always just trying to do what he wants. But he's a good beacon for some of that, just as a voice in my head, even. But yeah, what you could tone it back, and then it's not trying to be funny. It's like if it triggers the audience that it's trying to be funny and then it's failing, that's like bad. But if so, you just tone it back a little bit where it feels like it's not trying, then it can still be like a little goofy. But try hard. You can't have it be try hard. This is try hard. Oh, snarf. See, like, yeah. Man, that would actually be funny. Something like that actually would be funny. First class. I was watching one of Kelsey's morning streams. I loved hearing you two talk about Yashiro Ozu and films that inspired you. It was refreshing. Oh, yeah, that's cool. I remember that discussion. Ozu's good. I've only seen a few of his movies, but he's awesome. Very chill. Fictional expletive. The thing I had in mind, it was like so simple. I'll think of it again. It was like a regular thing people say, just almost like a thesaurus thing. But it's hard to think when the music's playing a little bit. First, last is getting out of here. Everyone's going to sleep. But yeah, I think I'm going to end the stream. But yeah, I think we might have got a little to the bottom, a little bit. No, I don't know if we got at the bottom, but even some of that Barbie discussion was decent. But yeah, I'm going to end the stream. Thanks, everyone. And remember, back EarthBound if you haven't yet. Get in on that action. Oh, sorry. I'm going to go one more minute. I have the other thing I got to do is make the back cover. So this will kind of be the back cover, but I'm going to put some writing, and I think I'm going to do the like 90s VHS cover thing where you got the squares with the characters' heads, and then the UPC kind of thing. And I'll get a tagline. I don't think I'll do this because it's confusing, but I thought of a tagline being, it could say something like, what? Become joy, what? Freaking becomes, Join with, become part of something greater than yourself is like the tagline. And then it's like, does the story have to do with that? It's like, no, I'm talking to you, the reader. You want to become something greater than yourself? Buy my book. I leave you with that. Okay. Good night, everyone.